The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Movie and TV Shows. Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas Sanjurjo, and you're listening to The Secrets of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're going to discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings of this MCU streaming series on Disney+. Joining me for the show today are Andrew Hermiz. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, hello.
And Mike Denz. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how you guys doing?
And we were talking about on the show beforehand. This is the first time that Mike and I have had the chance to be on together. So it's nice to meet you, and let's do more of these.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So before we get started, we'd love to have you be regular listeners to the show. So be sure to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. Also, be sure to share the show and to leave a rating and a review. It's the best way for us to stay relevant to the algorithms. So on this show, we're going to tackle the entire run of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And frankly, if you're listening to this before you've seen the show, that's all right. We're going to spoil the heck out of it, but honestly, only diehard Marvel fans are going to really be upset by that, I think. I feel like this show's part of the new wave of Marvel storytelling that allows them to branch out from the traditional superhero model. And even if you're not into superhero movies, this is a great show. And it really, I felt like it was subversive to the genre in all the right ways. It didn't beat you over the head with that. But it was really good in not being a superhero series. So before we get too far into the weeds, I'd love to hear from both of your opinions on the show generally, but I'd like you to start by sharing your favorite character from the show, because they were all incredibly well built, and it's hard to pick just a single standout lead.
Yeah, for me, I think Bucky is probably my favorite character, but just the way his character developed, I loved his story, and I thought they did a great job, developing Falcon's story too. Obviously, he has a huge evolution, but it's one we saw coming. I mean, we knew he was going to hold that mantle eventually of Captain America, and I thought it was a very interesting way that the season, handled his progression towards that. And I know we'll get into that some more, but I think as far as Bucky goes, everything from, if you just think about where we first saw his character, how far he's come, and how he's still dealing with a lot of the, heavy baggage that comes with, being the Winter Soldier and being a former assassin, and doing awful, evil things against his own will, of course, but still those wounds are there, and just seeing him go through therapy and seeing his relationship, especially in the beginning of the season, with the father of someone that he assassinated while being the Winter Soldier, and seeing him trying to acclimate to normal life, it just added a dynamic to his character. Other than, before, like it was more of like he just looked cool, with his arm and,
right.
With his, how fast he can move and how strong he was, with the, having the super serum, flowing through his veins. But yeah, we get to see a side of him that we've only got glimpses of, but we got, on more of a more detailed level. But yeah, quickly, if you were to ask me like who I just had the most fun with, it would be Zemo. Because he just chews up every scene he's in, and
absolutely,
it's very easy to root for him, even though he kind of lives in that gray area.
Right,
and he is also sympathetic at the same time, because if you remember why he became what he is, if you want to call him evil or a villain, or maybe he's trending more towards anti-hero now. Mm-hmm. You can't blame him, losing his family, and of course he would look at super soldiers like Winter Soldier and Captain America in that sort of light, and and with the Flag Smashers, being introduced this season, obviously, he had an agenda with them. So, but yeah, I guess those would be, I know I gave two, but I think, I know. Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, those would be my favorites.
I think that's the hardest part about the show is that every one of the characters was just so great. Even the characters that had limited screen time, there was so much character development for them and so much room for them to breathe.
And they were done so well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you got actors that you've never seen before, so many of them. Some you have, but I mean, some you're like, who's that? And you go look them up on IMDb, they really haven't done anything. But they're so good. Like the girl that played Carly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she had a great look. I mean, it's real Irish, the red hair and the freckles and everything. Doesn't look like she wears any makeup, and you're really, I mean, as much as I did not agree with like necessarily her cause or like kind of understand it like from a personal standpoint, I still was drawn into her passion, and I also didn't, she also got radical, so that, and I was mentioning the time before that I loved Emily Vanderkamp's character, Shannon Carter, and I was mad at her for still being the money grubbing schemer at the end. Not to fast forward too much, but the way she kind of just popped in and played that character was so well done. But also the pairing of Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much we got. Like, I guess it's true. I had the blessing of I went to a Comic-Con in 2018, and I was telling Tom, my daughter, Tom Hiddleston was there, and that's why we went. She wanted to meet him and get his autograph and all that. But Mackie and Stan were there too, and they were together on stage when they did the little interview thing, and they're the same. I mean, like Sebastian is more like subdued and kind of just talking, and Mackie is just all over. He makes fun of everybody. He loves to razz on Tom Holland.
Tom Holland, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's merciless. It's just
really
merciless and hilarious. And Holland, they go back and forth, and Holland just takes it and then gets in his own jab. But Mackie is he doesn't shut up sometimes. It's just so funny. I mean, and even like the people in the crowd are defending Holland because all the girls like Tom Holland, and Mackie just wouldn't back down. So then you see them in their characters and what they bring of themselves into their characters. And Anthony Mackie's definitely subdued, but he still comes out. I mean, he's still, as the Falcon, he's still, the Mackie-ness comes out. And it's just neat because as much as Sebastian has this arc of kind of like this 12-step program he's going on where he has all these people he has to go see and reconcile with and stuff, he's kind of like the Rock. He's kind of like the steady, like, and Mackie, the Falcon's going all over the place. He's dealing with his sister, and I don't want to sell the boat, and he's also dealing with, all this world situation, and I gave away the shield, and maybe I shouldn't, he's got all this stuff going on, and yeah, so does Sebastian, but Sebastian's kind of quietly, just stewing with it and keeping it inside while he's kind of being this rock all the way through.
Yeah.
For the Falcon, and so I kind of like that. I like the dependency, like even if he's pissed at you or he's not so happy with what you're doing, he's there. He's going to be there, with his super cool arm and everything, and doing what he needs to do. And
it makes that scene where the therapist has them turn and talk to each other so much more powerful, where, they're talking to each other and it's funny. And then all of a sudden he delivers that line. No, because if you don't believe in yourself, Steve believed in you. And if he was wrong about you, he was wrong about me. And that just like hit like a ton of bricks. And it was fantastic,
Yeah, they're not settling for just a bunch of action shots. They never have. I mean, the MCU has got the best rep for you're going to get real stories and real characters out of these things. We're not just going for, the flash and the shock and awe. But it's there. But that's not all.
Definitely. I think my two favorites, since we're picking two, or just kind of going whoever we like here. My two favorites in order, second and then first, were the villains. I loved John Walker's character. That actor owned every second that he was playing that character. It was so hard to watch him because you wanted to root for him so much, and he was just making the wrong decision every single time he could. And it was so hard to watch the fall of a good person, right, put into an impossible situation. And that's kind of what you see at the beginning. Sam's character doesn't want to take up the mantle, partly because he doesn't feel like he can, but also because there's just so much to it, and it means so much. It's so much more than just being Captain America, right? And Steve set the bar so high that it's hard to fill those shoes. So that was one of my favorites. But then the other was absolutely Zemo was just fantastic. Every line delivered perfectly. That slithering snake kind of feel to him where he was just waiting, but he wasn't afraid to be friends with the guys that he was going to betray, right? He wasn't afraid to kind of hang out with the Winter Soldier and Falcon while they were doing all their stuff and really talk with him. So there's that great scene on the airplane when he talks about Marvin Gaye, and he's like he's presenting it to him, and he just deadpans the whole line, and he's so serious and invested in the conversation with them, and knowing that he's going to betray him eventually. And they all know it. I mean, none of them are confused about that, but at the same time, he's really trying to be friendly with them. So I just love that character because he's fits so much into this kind of like, there is no good or evil for him. He's doing the thing that he feels like is right, even though it might be done in the wrong way.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Exactly. He's absolutely out of line, but he's right. Oh man. I think, I think the one thing that this show, if I had to boil it all down, this is my English degree past coming in here. If I had to boil it all down to one concept, legacy was the concept that this show really just centered around. So everything from the legacy of one person's own actions, you see that in Bucky, you see that in Zemo, you see it in Carly and how she kind of devolves over the course of the thing, even in John Walker's character too. So the legacy of the entire nation, really. You have all of the stuff with Bradley and how his group of super soldiers was treated, and generally how super soldiers are treated overall. Each character kind of had that concept of a personal legacy that they had to worry about over the course of the show. So, as well as a legacy that was kind of foisted on them by the world, it was like they had this thing that they had to do. So there's excellent themes of like regret, discrimination, disenfranchisement, and just expectations that are put on people that are in positions of power. So I was going to ask you guys here, what do you think the themes from this show that really worked for you, that you liked the best out of the characters and what they were dealing with?
Yeah, I really think they nailed, Falcon's message and sort of justification for giving him, the shield. And I think they understood like the weight of what that would have been like if this was a real life situation. I think they nailed that perfectly. Because, obviously you're dealing with, a big theme of the show was, the fact that, he's an African-American, that was offered the title of Captain America by, who was like the epitome of, the image of white male, Americana, serving country and, is God-fearing and willing to, to hold the line, so to speak. But knowing what, seeing someone, I mean, we've seen it here, in our own country, anytime, whether it was like, politics aside, having a first black president or having, the first black, female athlete to do such and such, break this record or, whatnot. It's always like, it's hard to separate as much as we want to. It's hard to separate, the race and human accomplishment. So I think they understood that, so they had to tackle that issue. It's it would have been a lot different if, like, Steve Rogers were to give that mantle to, any Avenger that was a white male. Like, it would have been a much smoother transition. And I like the way where, where the Falcon recognized that. And that was a big part of why he didn't want it, was knowing, like, and then him learning that there's even more baggage behind it, when he gets introduced to, I'm forgetting his name, but the other super soldier. Yeah, Isaiah Bradley. Like, him learning his story, and then where we get to a point in the show where we feel like, oh, because of Isaiah Bradley's story and the effect that character has on him, we think that he's never going to take on the mantle, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like he's it offered him like discouragement, but the way they flipped it to where he felt like it was more than ever he needed to take the mantle is because of Isaiah Bradley's story, is that so he can lift up those who were disenfranchised before him, right? And that, I guess, now famous speech that he gives at the end of the show in front of all the reporters. It's like he gets to establish like his Captain America and put his stamp on it. He's not a super soldier. He's not, what he's not going to carry the expectations of a Steve Rogers.
Even cusses in the middle of the speech. He cusses with all of these world leaders around. He's not going to be Steve Rogers.
Language.
Yeah, exactly. So it's. I thought it was like it again, when you're talking about legacy, this is like what, from now moving forward, being Captain America, and we're gonna be able to separate him from everyone else who's played the character, not just in film, but like in comics. Like, I know in the comics he's there are iterations of him as Captain America, but this specific Falcon in the MCU is gonna stand out because of that. And I thought they handled it in a way where it wasn't too like it didn't lean like right or left, or it didn't. I felt like it didn't. Yeah, it wasn't too preachy or anything like that. I think it's the way that they handled all of the racial, political aspects of it, social injustices, whatever. I feel like it's something that everyone could be in line with. So yeah, I think that established his character in a very important way, because it's hard to see anyone but Chris Evans play that character, and I think the MCU realized that. So they're making this Captain America just so much different than him that he doesn't have to worry about living up to that level. Like, he can be Captain America, but he can still have his own identity.
Very much so. Yeah. They definitely established him as something completely unique, and I thought it was really good to do that in the series too, having Walker's Captain America be still that blue with a little bit of red and white in it. And then when you see Wilson's character, it's white with a little bit of red and blue. And that was a really good way to distinguish the two of them.
I think the thing I would come up with is integrity. And the reason being is I like plot twists. I like the unexpected, the not the predictable, like, okay, we know what's going to happen next, but the plot twists and the things that you don't think are going to happen. But I don't like unpredictable characters. I don't like to see somebody who seems so obviously good suddenly be bad or do something really wrong. And you're like, wait a minute, why would that person do that? Or it just it never flows well. And I like having characters that have this integrity that you can depend on. Like, this person's going to work it out. I just knew that Bucky was going to go back to that father. Mm-hmm. He's going to work it out and he's going to go back. And I wasn't really sure how it was going to work, but I had a pretty strong feeling, even because I didn't know from the comics. I'm mostly just the cinematic universe guy. But that the Falcon, was going to become Captain America and was going to work through these things. And just, I like seeing the heroes of the story, end up being heroes because they, even though they're flawed, they come out and they do what you hope they're going to do and what you expect them to do because they're dependable and it's going to work out, even though they have their challenges, throughout. So that's kind of like I saw the arc. I mean, the clear arc of Falcon, the clear arc of Bucky, and how they went through it, and the challenges they had to go through, but that they came out in the end. I guess that's how I would.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, and they both leave a very strong sense of who the Avengers should be, right? Like, we could have anybody be a superhero, and they could be all sorts of, and that was one of the things that I thought was really interesting about WandaVision, because it gives us a view of a broken hero, right? And that she has to kind of pull herself out of that. And so we see her as a broken hero pulling herself out of that. But then here we see two heroes that are not broken, but they haven't fully become themselves yet, right? So Bucky's coming out of that period of being broken. And Wilson's he's not really ready to fully accept who he is yet. And that is it. Both of those are really good arcs. But, Mike, I want to tag up on yours because I think for mine, John Walker's story, the plot arc in this series was just so fantastic, even as kind of background, as foil as it was to the main characters, because you have this guy who wants to be good. He's trying to be good, and he gets pressured into being better, to filling a role that's bigger than he can fill. And he just can't keep up. And I think that was the big turning point for him was, being humiliated by the Wakandan characters when they fight with him, and they humiliate him in that moment, and Zemo gets away from them, but they're just superior to him, and he can't stand that, and he has that mental break sort of moment, and he takes the superhero serum, he falls, but then he comes back, and you get to see this beautiful redemption arc for him, where you feel like he's going even deeper into the dark side, right? He makes his own Captain America shield, and he shows up to stop the terrorists by you feel like he's going to be there to kill him. And then it turns on a dime. All of a sudden, he's actually making the right decision suddenly. And it's such a great moment to see this guy that has kind of been broken in front of us. Like the character's been torn open, and then he gets put back together in the same moment. And so we have this question at the end. Okay, who is this U.S. agent going to be? And I feel good about it. I feel like they could take this chance to really make a good character out of him. And in the comics, U.S. Agent is not a bad guy. He's a little bit more edgy than Captain America, but he's not the guy that's smashing people in the face with a shield until they die. That's, that was a moment, cut out of Walker's life that makes him become a better person. And I hope that's kind of where they keep pushing his story as we go along.
By the way, just a segue from that. Just what a great cameo by Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
I know, right?
did not see that coming. I mean, they kept that casting a secret. Like when she came on screen, I'm like, am I watching a different show here? Is this like Veep or something? Like,
and not who you would expect to be in the MCU at all, right?
Not at all. But yeah, I think I think her character, along with now U.S. Agent, I think that'll make for a cool. I don't know, whatever they have planned for their futures, probably for a season 2 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, or a different series or film. But I'm very looking forward to what they have in store for that.
Definitely, I think it'll be a good story to tell.
Is Dreyfus's character in the comics?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, she seems to be a little shady. Is that correct?
She's kind of like I would describe her as, like, she's not like a villain, but she's more like she plays like that gray area. Like, she's willing to do any. It's kind of like, what the U.S. agent's character, his philosophy was like, as long as the job is getting done, like, don't ask any more questions. Like, just kind of let me handle it. And if I need to do some some shady stuff to get there. You know, it's kind of like don't ask, don't tell sort of thing. So she kind of plays those lines. But yeah, she wasn't like a really like you mentioned, like the U.S. agent, not really a villain or an evil character, but can get into some trouble.
Not as dark as Punisher, but still questionable, right? And I think that her role is more like that paramilitary, which you see a lot of that kind of pop up in this one, where it's that paramilitary. Like, are they really military or are they vigilante?
She's kind of a counterpart to Nick Fury, where she's like a leader of, you know, an organization or like a secret, you know, super classified team of heroes or anti-heroes. But she usually mixes in with the anti-heroes or with the, you know, the villains, kind of like she's not so much what's Viola Davis's character for Suicide Squad. I'm forgetting
That's
the character's
exactly what
name.
I was thinking of.
Yeah, she's not as like messed up. Not as messed up as her, but she kind of has her own Suicide Squad, sort of, so to speak, where she's not really dealing with Avenger type characters, but more like, you know, kind of where Zemo's left off. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if she worked with Zemo in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah, that would make sense.
Some stuff.
People she can depend on to get it done without worrying about breaking, you know, bending a few rules here and there.
Yeah, I don't think she would implant an explosive in their heads, but or in their necks. But yeah, I think she's, you know, offering, you know, criminals immunity, stuff like that. Like totally the type of character that she would play.
Definitely a more real world sort of superhero than the Steve Rogers kind of feel that we get from some of the Avengers. Which I like. I like that they're going with that more gritty tone to it, but not really. It's not dark. It's just okay. Well, you know, lots of challenging things are happening. So what would these superheroes do? And it's not, you know, it's not like Bad Boys or something like that, but it's definitely, we see that there are challenges to being a superhero. So there's definitely more discussion, but I want to take a break here to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of movies and TV, especially Angie, Allison K, Thaddeus P, and the S family, and Ben B. Their generous donations at SQPN/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of movies and TV and all the shows here at StarQuest. We'd love for you to join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So while WandaVision was a little more thematic across the breadth of the show, I think this one deserves some attention on a plotline basis. So we're going to do a brief recap of each show, and then anything that you guys remember specifically from the shows as we're talking about them. Let's bring up some of that stuff and talk about it. Because every turn, there were so many characters and so much stuff happening that it's hard to just talk about the general show without going into some little specifics. So I have some brief synopses that I wrote up, as brief as I possibly could, because these shows were dense. So we start off with the first episode, which is New World Order. And we start with Falcon running a paramilitary mission. Turns out that maybe the blip people coming back from the dust is not so great for the world. So we've got this flag smasher organization, that's started. And in the midst of all of this, Sam has to make a choice about what to do with the shield, and he doesn't feel that he's ready for it. And this is where we get the cameo from Don Cheadle and the talk back and forth between them about whether or not he should be giving the shield. But Wilson ends up handing the shield over to the U.S. government for display. And we find out that Wilson's family is actually in difficult straits financially. And it doesn't matter that he's a superhero. That doesn't make money. So I thought that was an interesting look at the superhero life.
Especially when they went to try to get a loan.
Right. And the guy's like, could I get your autograph? But no, I can't give you a loan. It's like, yeah, sure. I'll sign the loan paper, please. Right. And then we see also that Barnes is in therapy. So Bucky Barnes is he's in therapy as part of his release deal. So they're forgiving him for the things that he did as the Winter Soldier, but he has to go to therapy as part of that deal. And then at the end of the show, we get the surprise that the government makes John Walker the new Captain America without letting Sam Wilson know at all. So anything you guys notice about this one? I think this one's a pretty good intro to the series, generally speaking.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a good recap of or like a good establishment of where the characters are from where we left off, and with a neat surprise and tease at the end that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season. So yeah, pretty much everything you would want out of a first episode. And I think from here on out, as we get into the other episodes of the season, the show just got better and better, because after this one, you got to dive into the actual plot and the sort of stakes that we're dealing with.
I was definitely like looking at my daughter going, who is this guy?
Yeah.
I was very like, and the guy that plays him, he's not, like the perfect chiseled looks of Chris Evans. He's kind of got a goofy looking like nose and face. So he looks like some sort of like Joker, like cartoon character in this Captain America outfit. Like,
right.
That doesn't look right at all. He's not supposed to look. So it was even extra kind of strange to see that kind of face in. He
looks like the old guy in Up.
He does a little bit like that.
Putting the
very strange profile, and it was just like, what? So that even made it more kind of almost not. I don't know if comical is the right word, but just kind of like strange, like what an awkward kind of bizarro Captain America.
Bingo.
For that first glimpse.
Yeah, I wonder how much went into the costuming, because that helmet did not look like, I don't know, it just didn't look heroic, right? It looked like it kind of bit him funny, and
yeah, I think they were going for that.
Yeah, I'm sure they were.
It had to have been very intentional. Kind of
yeah. So I'm hoping that when they come up with the use as agent, it's good.
He does. I mean, he's a handsome guy. I mean,
right.
Wyatt Russell is, Kurt Russell, and I think Jane Fonda is his mom. I know.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I know Kurt Russell's his dad, and he has a famous mom. I think it's Jane Fonda. I might be wrong, but so good genes. And
I think it's Sally Field. No.
Now we're all trying to look it up, right?
I know, right? Yeah.
Kurt Russell was with somebody for a long time, but I don't remember who it was.
But and usually
it's Goldie Hawn. Goldie Hawn, yeah.
Goldie Hawn. Thank you. And in a lot of his roles, he has a beard, and he looks good in a beard. But yeah, he's clean shaven, and yeah, they made him look goofy in that mask. They did a really good job with that.
Yeah, it definitely looked strange. And I think the ears hanging out thing was like, that mask was pushed down and his ears were poked out, and it was like, oh gosh. So yeah, that first glimpse you get of him was just that you look at him and you go, that's not Captain America. And it was just very
kind of, if you remember that first glimpse, they did the hero angle, the hero shot, like they shot it from below.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did not look like a hero. Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, so I wasn't imagining it.
No. I'm sure there was a lot of intentional decision making going on in that one.
Yeah.
So the next episode was, I think, where some of the hard hitting stuff really starts, because the first episode you kind of get a feel for some of the things, but then we start to really see what the Flag Smashers are about, all that kind of stuff. So I'll go through that one real quick. Walker at the very beginning is on Good Morning America trying to talk about how much he wants to fill Steve Rogers' shoes. And Barnes and Wilson have a talk, and Barnes is chastising him for giving up the shield. He says, that's your shield. You shouldn't have given it up. And we find out later why he's so intent on that. But at this point, it just makes sense for him to say, hey, that wasn't a good idea. I was there with you. He gave you the shield. He wanted you to have it. But even so, the two make a really good smack talking team as they go up against Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers. And after that fight, because they're fighting super soldiers, Barnes thinks it's good to introduce Sam to another super soldier that he knew of in Isaiah Bradley. So he takes him to downtown. Where was it? Detroit? I don't remember where.
Was it Cleveland? Maybe it might have been Cleveland.
Maybe. But
it could have been Detroit. Yeah, I don't remember.
But it's one of those areas where it's, traditionally it's not a very great area. And so Isaiah Bradley is a former super soldier that has a very shaded past. Like there's a lot of really bad stuff that happened to him. Not that he did, but that happened to him because of the super soldier serum. And then Barnes gets in trouble because he missed a therapy session. He gets brought in for questioning and is arrested, but then Walker springs him from prison. And instead of joining him at this point, because Walker's still kind of smug about being the new Captain America, Wilson and Barnes both decide to go off and seek the help of someone else to work with them against the Flag Smashers. And the other person that's obvious in this case, if you were keeping up with Marvel lore, was obviously Helmut Zemo, who is in prison. But that, that's the next episode where we start to see the vigilantism really shine. And I like you were saying earlier, Mike, Carly's character is just, it's great. It's hard not to empathize with her because she does have that innocent, but also very strong face and demeanor about her. And I don't know if you guys remember, she was also the rebel commander in Solo when.
I instantly recognized her from that. Like, oh, that's the girl from Solo.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize her, but I looked it up. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, she a very kind of youthful idealism about her, and yeah, you were drawn into her and tried to understand, that this was not something where they were traditional villains in any sense. They were more of the, we have a cause, and we might be going about it the wrong way, but we do have a just cause here. And
it's hard. It's a hard position to be put in, to deal with all of these people who have found a home within the last 5 years because everything was abandoned. Half of the world was abandoned. And now suddenly all of those people are back and want to return to their lives as they were. But the world has changed in the meantime. So what do you do about that? It's really a challenging problem. That's even more challenging than the problem that Thanos was trying to solve with his messed up solution, right?
Definitely. It's interesting. I'm watching another series where a wife thought dead comes back and her husband's married, and so they have that whole trope where they gotta who does he love and what goes on, and part action, whatever. But it's just kind of like you empathize with both. You empathize with the people that have been around for the last 5 years and thought, well, this is the way the world is. Then all of a sudden people come back. I mean, just kind of imagine somebody coming back and saying, hey, this is my house, or this is where I live, or what did you do to my place? And like, well, you were gone. I'm sorry. That's it's interesting that they actually thought of, let's go with that. Let's go with that
right.
As like, not just an unfortunate circumstance or a little blip here and there. We can really make it into half the world came back and they want their stuff back.
Did you guys watch any of the Defenders series when it was on Netflix? The Daredevil and Punisher.
Oh yeah.
And those.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That was one of the other ones that was really good at dealing with the kind of fallout from everything that was happening. So it was, in spots in New York that were affected by the, post the New York thing. Right. And they had to pick up the pieces. And there were a lot of situations in which not so savory characters stepped in to pick up those pieces. And so we saw the rise of Kingpin and the Daredevil having to fight against him. And Daredevil as a Catholic character was fantastic. So if you haven't watched that series, definitely give it a shot. It was really amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I thought that this kind of, I love this stuff that's the fringes of what happens when a superhero gets done, because yeah, there's a lot of destruction. There's a lot of fallout. You can't just get rid of half of the human population and then have them come back and not have it be an issue. We already have a problem with scarcity narrative. Just imagine, once you've actually, quote unquote, solved that, and then everybody's back, and now we're back to square one, if not worse. I sympathized a lot with the Flag Smashers. I thought that was a great angle all the way through, even with their less savory way of dealing with things. It was understandable, and there was never a point where you were like, well, obviously they're the bad guys. So we get to episode 3, where it's called Power Broker, and Zemo, who Barnes and Wilson go to see, offers to help them against the super soldiers. So Barnes orchestrates a prison escape. Shady dealings from the guy who's just been forgiven of all of his crimes. And they travel together to Madripoor to find a Hydra scientist named Dr. Wilfred Nagel and ask about the super soldier serum. And there they meet Sharon Carter when she saves them from when they're exposed, and now every bounty hunter in the city's after them because they're the guys that if they can get them, they're going to have a lot of money, a lot of reward money one way or another. And she shows them the way to Nagel's lab after they stay with her for a time period. We find out that Morgenthau has all the serum, and Zemo, in a moment of confusion, kills Nagel and destroys the lab. And Wilson, at this point, when they're escaping, Wilson promises Carter that he'll get her pardoned. And then the show ends on this one with the Flag Smashers destroying a GRC facility, and Barnes sneaking off to talk with Wakandan Dora Milaje Ayo about his partnering with Zemo and how she wants him back. They want to take him into custody. So I think this is the one where we start to see some of Zemo's story unfold in a really interesting way. And we don't know why until the next episode. Like, we don't really get a full view of what he's doing. We know some of it from, his story in Civil War, but I think now we get to see just how devoted to the end of super soldiers he really is.
Awkward silence.
Yeah. Sorry. Move on. So, yeah.
Which isn't good for a podcast.
Oh, wow. It's all good. So we get to the fourth episode, which is called The World is Watching. And Barnes is on a timeline to get Zemo, to use Zemo to help track down Morgenthau. And even though he's never on the same page as Wilson and Barnes, Walker intercepts them at the funeral. And while Sam's trying to talk to Carly and convince her that, maybe what she's doing is going down the wrong path, Walker steps in and ruins the whole thing by getting into a fight with her. And in the fight, there's a big chase sequence, and it ends up that Carly drops all the super soldier serum on the ground. And this is where we see Zemo step in and just absolutely trash the entire stash of super soldier serum. You almost get to this point where you watch him and you're like, well, what's he going to do? Is he going to take some? And then no, he's just that dedicated to this cause of ending this concept of super soldiers. He just starts smashing them all. And in this, Walker grabs one of them and holds on to it. And there's that beautiful scene at the end where him and his sidekick, Lamar Hoskins, they have that conversation about what would you do if you had the opportunity to take the super soldier serum. And there's no real resolution to that conversation, which I thought was the best part. Like, they don't really decide one way or the other. They just talk about, wouldn't it be nice? Like, it's kind of like this wistfully, wouldn't it be great if we could just do that? But there's no like, yes, of course I would, or no, of course I wouldn't kind of answer to it. So I ask you guys about that. The character Battlestar, I think, is really significant. The Lamar Hoskins, we don't, his character ends, his character arc ends during the show, but I thought he was a really good sidekick for this particular type of Captain America. What did you guys think about him?
Yeah, I thought, it was obviously important to have that character who was a part. Obviously, seeing his end, that serves as the motivation of his character to go on the path that he does and to ultimately take the serum and all of that. And we'll get into that. But yeah, I thought it showed like, first of all, he had like this brother in arms, that he just shared all these experiences with, fighting in wars and having good memories and obviously must have had plenty of bad memories with him too, but they shared that. And, it was important for us to sympathize with the humanity of Walker's character to have him, because there was like his it's not like they showed like it's not Walker's, was it his wife or girlfriend?
I think it was his wife.
His wife, yeah. Were they married? Yeah. Like, she didn't play that big of a role. Like, we got glimpses of her here and there, but like more than anyone, Battlestar's character was like the person that he was closest to, and to see the loyalty that they had for each other was cool to see. Kind of played off of Falcons and Winter Soldiers sort of relationship. Like, they're extremely loyal to each other, but they're not afraid to air their disagreements, and but like Walker and Battlestar pretty much agreed on everything. Just they would sing to each other's tune all the time.
Old football buddies, right? That's exactly kind of the way they're presented and the way they follow through. And so then, I think, and that's what when we get to the end of this episode, because at that point, Walker makes the decision to take the super soldier serum, and then they end up in another fight with, they go to confront Wilson and Barnes about their partnership with Zemo, because they find out that, they help Zemo escape from prison. And in the middle of that is the real moment where Walker gets humiliated by the Dora Milaje when they fight him, and they're able to really easily best. It's almost like they're playing with him, and it's so insulting to him that he doesn't have the power that Steve Rogers has. That I think that's the moment where he decides, this is the way to fix this. I need to become just like Steve Rogers. And so he decides to use that serum to then go through the transition. And I love I think in one of the Captain America movies, I'm not sure which one it was, they talk about the fact that the serum doesn't make you any better. It just brings out more of who you are. And that's such a great thought to go through, and then to watch what happens to Walker when we see Battlestar killed during their trying to jump the Flag Smashers, and then he chases one of them out, and then just brutally murders them, which I think this is probably the most brutal scene we've had in any Marvel property to date. And they did it very tastefully. They were really good about not showing exactly what was happening, but it was very clear what was happening, and all of the onlookers watching were horrified to see Walker just murder this guy in essentially cold blood, even though it was for revenge. And I thought it was interesting to see that this was an avenge of someone's death. And so he really is an avenger in an odd sort of way when this happens.
Didn't they flash back to the original scientist who helped develop the serum, who kind of handpicked Steve, the wimpy Steve,
yes,
to be, he's like, this is I want someone like you because you already have the characteristics that the serum isn't going to give you, but will bring out. And then they, kind of contrasted that with Walker and what happens with him. And I that was really helpful in kind of being reminded of that. And the one thing I'll say about Battlestar, besides the fact that in the very beginning, he kind of legitimized, if you had the goofy, Walker that we discussed from his first, shot of him in the first episode, you're like, what the heck is this guy? But then Battlestar came in when he was kind of like going through like, okay, this is what I got to do. This is what I'm going to be. And he came in and kind of built him up, and kind of, for me, at least as an audience member, was like, okay, this guy's all right. He's a hero. He knows what he's doing. He's got this other guy who's a buddy of his, who's obviously also a good guy, But the other thing that I loved was when he introduced himself to Falcon and Bucky as Battlestar, and just like, okay, right, forget it. Yeah. Like, what kind of corny name is
goofy,
cool?
Yeah.
Is this? Yeah, I can't deal with it.
From two guys named the great. Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
the Winter
right?
Soldier. Yeah. But it was fun.
Yeah, well, there was that other moment too when they're walking through the downtown area, and one of the kids refers to Wilson as the Black Falcon, right? And that was another good play on the names and how goofy these superhero names can be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think this moment was intense. It was really good, but it's about as dark, I think, as I want Marvel to get, if I'm honest, because I think that's one of the problems that I've seen in the DC stuff, is that it's gotten a little too shady with the way that the direction that they've gone with some things, and a lot of the other superhero stuff that's coming out right now. I mentioned Bad Boys earlier, and the other one that's really popular right now is Invincible, and both of those are very dark takes on the superhero genre, which is fine in limited fashion. But I think one of the things that we want about these is that they are paragons of whatever they're standing for. Not only are they superhuman, but they're also super virtuous in the way that they deal with things. So even if they've got a checkered past like Tony Stark, or they are kind of lackluster in the way that they deal with things like Star-Lord, they still are truly virtuous in the way that they deal with things. And this moment was it was tough. It was tough to watch Captain America, It was tough to watch the shield.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not what the shield is for.
It's the exact opposite. And it's ironic too, because DC does have the more classic virtuous, Superman, Wonder Woman characters that have no flaws, that are like perfect Christ-like characters or something. And Marvel has all the goofballs that were like stung by spiders or, whatever. Just the guys that have flaws, that had certain powers thrust upon them and have to work through them. But yet they've been able to maintain that, like I said in the beginning, that these are guys with integrity and character that do work through their flaws and come out as heroes.
So we get to the next episode, which is called Truth, very simply. Second to last episode. And this one was probably the most jam-packed episode. These last two episodes were there was so much going on, and it was so great, but it was like, it was a mini movie, each one of these last two episodes. And so we see Wilson and Barnes demand the shield back from Walker, but then they have a fight, and the fight leads to a destruction of the Falcon suit, the wingsuit. And then Barnes goes to find Zemo in Sokovia, and Wilson takes the suit to Joaquin. He takes it to Joaquin, and Joaquin, if you don't know the comics, Joaquin is a version of the Falcon. So after Wilson takes up the mantle of Captain America, he keeps a wingsuit, but Joaquin also becomes another version of the Falcon, and doing the same kind of thing that Wilson was as well. So I thought that was a really good kind of throw over to the comics there. And then we see Walker receive an other than honorable discharge before being approached by the Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, which is Julie Louis-Dreyfus's character with that purple shock of hair. It was just so great. She had that bubblegum chewing, like sunglasses, bubblegum chewing, always on your phone kind of mentality that she brings to everything, really. And she brought it to this character so well. And there we go, Joaquin Torres. So Wilson leaves the suit with Joaquin Torres and then visits Bradley to test his thoughts about taking up the Captain America. And that scene to me was impressive, because it's that moment of going to see a mentor, going to see the wise man and asking, okay, is this really what I'm supposed to do? And again, he comes out without an answer. Like the answer very clearly from Bradley is no. Obviously you can't do that. But he gives just as much wisdom as he gets in that conversation. And we're left not really knowing, I think that's one of the things you were talking about earlier, Andrew, was that we're left not really knowing what he's going to do. And the stakes are still high at this point, because we know he has to become Captain America at some point. But are they going to drag this out for 2-3 seasons, or are they going to go ahead and let him do it? Is that what's happening? And then we get the great 2-part series of scenes where they go back to Louisiana and they help fix the boat, and they have party with the people that are there, and it's kind of that relaxed moment in the middle of the storm. And we get the training montage, which I thought was fantastic. And Mike, you and I were talking about that earlier, that the training montage it really clarified some things, right?
Yeah. Look, what it must be like to try to deal with the shield, and all the misses and near decapitations that
right.
he avoided.
Yeah. I think it's not as easy to throw as you think it might be.
No.
So, and then the show ends with the Flag Smashers planning to attack a GRC meeting in New York. And then we get that awesome mid-credit scene, which if you weren't watching the credits, you would miss. I don't know why they threw only one mid-credit scene. that was annoying. But you get that mid-credit scene where John Walker's making his own version of the Captain America shield. And that's really, you're like worried, like, okay, what is this guy gonna do? Because this is not good. And then we end up last episode, One World, One People. And I got a lot to say about this one, because there's some stuff that happens that I really enjoy, and some stuff that I was kind of iffy about. But Wilson flies to New York as the new Captain America, which, okay, what thoughts on his suit before we go any further?
Not my favorite design, but like I think it fits his character because it's super flashy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of what he does is, involves him flying at super speeds and twirling in the air. So it looks cool from that point of view. But like just him walking around in that, really white suit, like it's kind of silly looking on a ground level. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I thought, like I said, I thought it fit his character and his characteristics pretty well. So yeah, maybe there'll be, like with most characters, evolutions of it.
Yeah.
So
I'm hoping in the next iteration they tone down the shoulder pads. That was the thing that really
right. Yeah, he's very bulky.
Spies.
Yeah, I mean, I think they try to also border on realism. Like he's not a super soldier, so it would make sense that he's padded very well, and I guess the Wakandans put some extra vibranium on there, right, to make sure it's like yeah. So yeah, I thought that like silly on one part, but I can understand why it's so flashy.
I agree with that. I think that it fits his character, even if it is a little overly flashy for my taste.
I'm trying to remember what he had on his eyes as the Falcon. I feel so stupid that I can't, because I didn't like the, blue blocker sunglass thing. Like he looks like he's a basketball player or something like that with the big goggles. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just like nothing else is on his head but these big these big sunglasses.
Yeah. Well, it's because when he was the Falcon, they basically look like Oakleys, right? They look kind of like that thin. They had a much thinner profile to them.
Yeah,
and these almost look bug-eyed. Like it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's what it was. And yeah. So I mean, I thought the suit itself is symmetrical. The colors are cool. I mean, I had no problem with it. I just remember thinking, why is he wearing those sunglasses? It looks like a bug or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, I was fine with it. And I was kind of looking forward to it because obviously they didn't like hide the fact that, there's something special in that box,
right.
And he didn't open it right away. So you knew that what was in there, and you really just wanted to see what, put it on, will you? So, right. Yeah. So I don't think I was like disappointed when I saw it.
No, and I'll tell you the fighting, with the shield and the wingsuit was awesome. They did such a good job with that. Lots of little fun ways of him being his own very unique fighter with the shield. And for anybody that doesn't know, that was one of the things that Chris Evans brought to the Captain America character. Was he did a lot of thinking about how you would fight with a shield, and so a lot of the fight scenes he helped choreograph because he knew both dramatically as an actor what was going to work, but also he got into thinking about how Captain America would use the shield. And you see a very different way of fighting that's been given to, or I'm not sure how much a reworking of the choreography with the actor, but you see this new way that he fights, and it's very unique to Falcon's style of, being here and then being able to go somewhere else and have the shield kind of follow or attached to him as he's going, or just expecting it to be there when he gets there, kind of thing. So they end up fighting the Flag Smashers, and they foil the plan. There's lots of ups and downs throughout this whole thing, and when Walker appears, it's kind of a tense moment because we're not sure exactly how he's going to react to everything that's going on. But then he ends up being very heroic in the end, in saving the day in his own way, but being part of the solution, not part of the problem, which was that character needed that redemption for any sort of move forward, honestly. And then Sharon Carter's there as well, which was an interesting twist. And when did you guys realize that she was the power broker? I have to.
Pretty early.
Yeah.
I don't remember what episode it was, but I remember like thinking like, oh yeah, this is probably the direction they're going. And at first I was like, I don't think it would be believable. I hope they wouldn't go that route. By the end of it, I felt like, I wasn't as sour on it. Like, I feel like she can definitely play. Like, it definitely became more believable that, just knowing that, gosh, her whole career, knowing everything that she knows and having all the knowledge and all like the connections that she has, she could easily pull off something like being a power broker. And then, as we see at the very end, making these sort of like inner political career moves, to try and, have, financial gain, just selfishly, but also like, kind of like we were saying with the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character, like, she's not going to be like the bad guy or girl, but, she's going to make a mess here or there, leave a trail of some unsavory dealings or deal with some unsavory characters. So yeah, I thought, again, I called it, but I'm glad by the end of it, I was kind of more okay with her being the power broker.
I had no idea, just because I don't have all the comic book stuff that you guys, would have necessarily to kind of help fill in things. So if you can imagine, there's an awful lot of characters and concepts going on that I'm like trying to keep up with and take care of. So even like figuring out what the power broker is hard enough.
Yeah.
But like, and who might be the power broker? Does it really matter who's the power broker? And just kind of move on to try to keep up with the main stuff. So, a lot of those little details, I would need a second viewing till I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And get into a little bit more of that. There was more than one time I had to turn to my daughter and be like, who's that? Why do we know that?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was.
So,
it was intense.
I'll admit, I had no idea who Zemo was. I mean, I was just like, what? And then she goes back, and we had to actually to pull up, Civil War, and I'm like, oh, that guy, I remember him.
Right. Well, and it's because he played such a pivotal but tiny role in Civil War, right? Like he wasn't on screen much at all.
No, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I knew who that was, and I'm like, but I don't recognize him. But then when I look, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Same actor.
Same actor, and he does, and it's you see him in this series, and you're like, man, it was such a waste not to have him have a bigger role in Civil War. But you understand why, because a movie is a movie, and it's only got a certain amount of runtime, and when you've got so many actors on screen, it's hard to like take a new guy and give him any screen time at all. But yeah, he was so good at delivering lines in this one, especially. And so then, so just to finish out, they do manage to corner Morgenthau, and while Wilson is fighting her, it's pretty obvious that he's not going to win, and so Agent Carter shoots him, or not Agent Carter, but Carter shoots her at this point and kills her. And it's disappointing because Sam really wanted to redeem her because he believed in what she was doing, and it was a tough moment watching that, because I was like, you really wanted, you were rooting for him, but you were rooting for her too, to kind of come back to the light and come back to the good side of things. And then Sam flies her body over to the GRC group, and he gets his moment. He gets his Captain America speech, and it's very much not Steve Rogers, but it's very much what kind of needed to happen at that point, right? And I think you mentioned earlier, Mike, that he's a very wordy actor, right? He talks a lot as a person, and that comes through very much in in this speech. The speech is a lot more wordy, I think, than anything that Steve Rogers would have given.
Yeah, they weren't going to win. They weren't going to win with him. They weren't going to talk him down and get him to say, okay, forget it. He was just going to like, no. I like the fact that in that scene, these politicians that can kind of hide behind their sound bites and their interviews and stuff, they're like, no, you're right here, and you're going to answer the tough questions, and you're going to have to deal with, you're going to have to look this situation right in the eyes. Here's this dead girl, because you guys aren't doing this right. You guys aren't looking at them as real people.
Yeah, and I thought it was it was good because it was what they needed, and it's the Captain America I think that we needed to see, like was the person that was going to step up and speak to the authority and say, no, this is not good enough. You need to be better than this.
And at the core, that's what Captain America,
right?
What he represents. Like, this is what America's about. This is what, this is our ideals. And he's different, just like we have different saints, and they're all at the core for the same thing, but they have different personalities, different ways of doing things. And, he had to be his own Captain America. And as we said before, you weren't going to confuse him with Steve Rogers at all. But he definitely stepped up as someone who could have the shield.
also different than Steve Rogers. Like after the whole Civil War fallout, Steve kind of had to, go kind of rogue, him and everyone that was on his side. And I think Falcon could have easily done that. Maybe him and Winter Soldier just would, stay a team, but they would just kind of work, on an underground level and do it that way. But no, he chose to be in the spotlight and take that mantle and, introduce his way of doing things and what needs to be done and making sure, that things are done right. And not just like, instead of just flat out, opposing the system, trying to work with the system towards a resolution rather than just taking it into your own hands and, doing things potentially illegally or behind closed doors. So, yeah, I think that's another thing that would separate him and Steve Rogers' character and how they handled those sort of situations when they were presented.
And you saw, too, I was reading something on this where they showed how much darker Steve's costume got, and the flag was kind of blotted out and the star was just faded into the darkness, dark blue of his suit by the time, we were seeing him in the last couple of movies. And we talked about the contrast of Walker's suit with the Falcon's new suit. Well, that's a big contrast too when you look at the last way Steve Rogers was with how dark his outfit got. It was really almost just this combat dark suit with details you had to look real closely at. And all the white that was in Falcon's suit, much different. And the red, white, blue was definitely clear.
Right. Yeah. You see it. Yeah. Well, and you see also that, like, I like that it highlights the purity of the character, right? Where he's has to be that paragon of virtue. But then the funny thing about the speech is that it's unpolished, and that was so great because I think the thing we forget about Steve Rogers is that he had a lot of time on stage before he became the Captain America that we know. So he knew how to organize a crowd, how to make a crowd feel, how to really invest himself in the things that he was saying. And Sam's never had that experience. He's always been kind of the shadow guy. Like, he's the guy that they go to get things done. He does some clandestine stuff. He doesn't have to get up and talk in front of anybody. And so he knew he had to. And it comes across unpolished, but it's good that it came across unpolished. Like, it wouldn't have felt right if it had been a perfect speech.
So is Mackie going to be able to do some PSAs like Steve did, or probably not?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Have him with line girls dancing behind him and stuff. That would be really weird.
Sit there and have the little speech for the high school kids, or whatever.
Punching Hitler.
Yeah. Well, but it would be interesting to see a black Captain America go and speak to some disenfranchised kids in communities that are struggling, because that's what was really when they reference him as the Black Falcon, right? That was an important moment to tell, how people viewed the character and what he would be if he became Captain America. And so now that he's become Captain America, we do see this quality to him that's, hey, you're better than this. And I love that that's how he starts. It's like he's looking at people saying, you're better than this. Do it. Don't just know that you can be better than this, or say, well, we're doing the best we can. No, you're better than this. Stand up and do that. So it's a really good moment, I think. And then we get a lot of kind of wrap up, so there's the rest of the show is sort of wrap up where they do manage to gather all the super soldiers. They're going to be sending them off to the raft. But then we get the reintroduction of Zemo, right? So he's been quiet for the last episode. Now this final moment, he gets his final revenge, where the butler has laid a bomb in their transport and kills all of the super soldiers. So there are no more except for one. And I think that's going to be an important point, is that you still do, well, two. You still do have Bucky and Walker are still super soldiers, right? The U.S. agent, right? And so now we see, at that same time, we see Walker get his new code name, which is U.S. agent. I'm intrigued to see what his new costume is going to look like. That's going to be interesting, and how that's going to play out for him. And then we see Barnes finally cross off the last name on his list. And that's a tough moment. Just watching him, have to be honest with that father that he's been friends with and say, hey, I've got this thing I need to tell you. And that had to be tough. And then in the end, Wilson makes good for Bradley and gets his whole unit included in the Captain America exhibit. And that was a good moment. I think that was really,
that was
awesome.
Brings that whole story full circle, which is nice. And
I think it kind of helped. I mean, there definitely was like the recognition and stuff, but also, enabling him to let go of the bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like you're not just this victim who was discarded. And I believe it's Baltimore. If I looked it up,
there you go.
Correct on Wikipedia.
Okay.
That's Baltimore.
Yes,
but it was just discarded. But you were valued. They did do this. So it wasn't just the new Captain America who made him do it, but they had this, and America did this and remembered you. So it was. I think maybe there was a little bit of him saying, maybe I was wrong to be as bitter as I was.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at this.
Yeah. And I think the story of you have a mirror in the stories of the Winter Soldier having to forgive himself and ask forgiveness of the people that he had wronged, right? And the mirror to that in Sam is having to come to terms with forgiving a system that has been so repressive to him and the people that he is a part of, right? And we see that in Bradley's character where he couldn't forgive and let Sam become Captain America because he was so bitter about what had happened to him. And Sam is able to move past that and say, it's time. We need to really put that behind us and move forward, remembering all of those things, but remembering them for the good that they did in building a better people.
Yeah, you were just saying, like, you're better than this, do it, was kind of his theme towards the end. And that's exactly what it was. It's like, you're better than this. You're better than just being this bitter old guy who's mad all the time. And he showed him, in what they did with that display and including him in that. So, yeah, I like that. I like that ending. I like how they put it together. And refresh my memory because I haven't seen the last episode in a while. Did Bucky go back and kind of look through the window at that girl he had the blind date with, or again?
Yeah, he did.
And see the father, but they didn't see him. He just was kind of watching that they were like he couldn't be a part of that now. But yeah. I thought I remembered that. I was just trying to put it together in my head.
He's got the toughest position out of any character in the MCU. Now that Steve's gotten a chance to retire and be old, right? Bucky hasn't had that chance yet.
Yeah, I know. Really, what does he tell the girl? I'm 100 or whatever he goes. I don't remember. But
yeah,
she just thinks he's joking.
Right? It's like, no, I'm serious. I am actually that old.
Yeah, where do we think Steve Rogers is? That's an interesting.
We were having that talk before the show. We're like, where was he? I think so. This is a good time. I will just to wrap up the credits scene with Sharon Carter is being reinstated. She's been forgiven for her things and then is being reinstated. And we've touched on that I think enough that we know Emily Van Camp is capable of being the evil character, and I'm interested to see where it goes in the future. But when we were talking earlier before the show, Andrew, we were saying that we're hoping that Loki, since the show is playing with time so much, might take up the challenge of, well, where was Steve? Where was Steve in New York and in all of these other things that the Avengers were going through? Did he just sit on the sidelines, or was he actually there helping out? So it's a good time to open up the discussion to broader MCU stuff, because I think where WandaVision changed a lot of things about what we know about Wanda and Vision and kind of that group going forward, this one didn't change them so much as it just kind of filled in those holes that we didn't know of. So show ends with, okay, no, it's not the Falcon and Winter Soldier anymore. It's Captain America and Winter Soldier. So what do you guys think? What are your predictions for the next things that we're going to see in the MCU?
Oh boy. Obviously, they're going to play, again, bringing up Loki, they're going to play a lot with time travel. I think, introducing the time stone and all the events of Infinity War and Endgame, I think we're obviously just the beginning as far as like playing around with time and time travel. And then with WandaVision, kind of teasing that a little more, especially at the end. And then we know we're getting Doctor Strange 2, literally called the Multiverse of Madness. So alternate universes, time travel, this again with Loki, it's not like the OG Loki, it's a time variant Loki, so it's I think and then there are a lot of rumors surrounding the next Spider-Man movie, and we already know like Doc Ock from the Tobey Maguire movie is in it, and Jamie Foxx's Electro is in it. So obviously they're going in this multiverse direction. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how like the original Avengers that are left, like Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, Winter Soldier is more of a later Avenger, but still part of I would say the OG crew. How do these characters moving forward? How do they play in this? It's going to be really interesting. And yeah, I mean, will we? There's just so much possibility. It's like it's really fun to think of what they could do. Seeing different iterations of these characters that we love. It could also get them into a little trouble, because it's hard. I mean, with the major characters, they have to be really sensitive because they have like so much history behind them and emotional attachment. So if like Chris Evans were ever to come back and play Captain America again, but like a different version of him, like how would that be received? But yeah, I think I like that they're going towards like a more into like the fantastical aspects of these comic book stories. But as you can tell, they can still keep it really human and really grounded. Like with WandaVision, it dealt a lot with grief and loss and how we deal with that as human beings. And then obviously we've talked throughout this whole podcast about how these characters have grown through their with their emotional struggles and all the situations that they've had to deal with the fallout of previous films. I think Marvel will still keep that balance, but introducing all these sort of like crazy multiverse sort of aspects to it is just going to make it that much more bigger, if that's even possible to do. With this universe. So yeah, I'm just I'm here for it.
I'm excited to see where it's headed next too, in that sense.
Yeah, I think that they set such a standard with 10 years of excellence. I mean, I was talking with when I was talking with Dom on one of the podcasts when we did one of the movies, I was mentioning they haven't done a bad one, and he said, well, the Dark World, and I'm like, no, that's one of my favorites. Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, if you're just you can't say that. And I mean, obviously, everybody has maybe like certain ones they don't think were as good as others, but
Iron Man 2.
Really, what's that?
Iron Man 2.
See, I really liked Iron Man 2.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I wasn't that crazy, but it was good. But no, I mean, when as taken as a whole, it's just amazing. I keep hoping that some of that magic will rub off to more and more of what the Star Wars genre comes out with, so that more than just the Mandalorian is something we can be, happy with. But yeah, I'm really excited for Loki. I just want to see Tom Hiddleston be Loki, and just be able to just really like, focus on his character and see where it goes and what he does and how he responds to all these things. And it's in the previews, it looks like things are being done to him, like he's dealing with all this stuff. But you forget what Loki can do. Right. To other, I mean, like what kind of tricks up his sleeves and what kind of images he's going to project and all this stuff. And they're not going to know which way's up or down, with them. It's going to be great. And you got, am I correct that Love and Thunder is going to be with the Guardians of the Galaxy? Like, is he going to be? That's when we saw him last. He was flying off for Star-Lord, and I would pay a lot of money to see him and Star-Lord interact for a whole movie. I mean, that's just awesome, or to see Chris try to do an Australian accent as he tries to act like Thor. That was the best. So, and it's going to be neat to finally see. They kept pushing it back, but Black Widow's movie. going to be coming out, I think, this summer, right?
This summer, it's
yeah. So it's a lot of stuff to look forward to and enjoy as we slowly, rub our eyes as we're coming out of this pandemic.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been a blessing and a curse for the cinematic universe, because it's they wanted to get these shows off the ground, and it's almost like they orchestrated this whole thing to force us to have to start doing streaming more. But I am not a conspiracy theorist in that way, guys. I mean, just to be clear to everyone. No, that's. But I think it's been really good for them, because it has provided that avenue for them to be able to really engage in the streaming shows. And I keep talking to people. I'm a huge comic book fan. I've been a comic book fan for my entire life. And some of my favorite comic book runs were the one-off storylines that were, you had your mainline X-Men story or your mainline Avengers stories and stuff like that. But then you had these one-offs where it would be about Wolverine and Rogue. And that was, it was just a small offshoot series that was just about those two characters. Or, a just small offshoot series about, I was a big X-Men fan, so that's why most of mine are X-Men references. But like the Cyclops and Jean Grey, Scott Summers and Jean Grey, and how their marriage went, like what their relationship was like, especially once she became a super being, like beyond godhood almost. And those were so cool, because it really allowed the writers this freedom to just do kind of whatever they wanted to with the character. And we're seeing that in these presentations of, like, here we have Sam and Bucky and how they have to deal with their life. And so they have a lot more freedom to tell a longer story that gets a little more detailed and a little bit more off of the beaten hero path. And there's still action and there's still all the cool hero stuff, but we get the freedom to really get a good story out of them. And I'm looking forward to so many more of these. I hope they keep doing this indefinitely, because it really is the next kind of evolution, in my opinion, of what the MCU should be. Any final thoughts before we close it out?
I can't wait for, again, I'll reiterate, can't wait for Loki. And
all the previews are so good.
I know. I hate that Falcon and Winter Soldier came out, a week after WandaVision, or 2 weeks after WandaVision, I think.
It was pretty close there.
Yeah, it's a shame that we have to wait this long for Loki, but we're almost there. Yeah, they moved it up, so
yes. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness something's working.
How many episodes is it? Does you know?
I think it's a 6-episode run. So I think it's the same.
They're over so fast.
Yeah.
It's like you just started getting into it and it's like there's only 2 episodes left. What?
But I like that they're releasing them week by week. That's my that is a very good,
because then they really would be over fast.
Yeah. It gives you time to digest it. You're not just inhaling the whole thing all at once. You really have to think about each episode. And you have that moment at the end of each episode where you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next week? I can't wait for it.
The real cliffhangers instead of like, I'll just watch the next one.
Yeah, exactly. So I will say my only problem with this show, but my big complaint is at the end, they changed the name of the show to Captain America, but they didn't give Bucky another superhero name. Like they didn't call it, like they didn't say Captain America and the White Wolf or something like that. They called him the Winter Soldier still, and it's like,
oh yeah,
no,
I had the same thought. I had the same thought actually. That's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, I was like, didn't he he's not Winter Soldier anymore. We just saw him he crossed that last name out. He's moving on. Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe that'll be the next part 2 of the series.
There you go.
It'll be more of his transformation. He'll get a new suit that's more white, and
we'll get another name.
He'll change his name.
Well, but see, I think this is where the danger in that is because that would be a totally new comic book thing, because Winter Soldier is that character. That's who he is. He's that in the comic books. He's that kind of throughout. And the White Wolf is a sort of gag. It's one of those names you give somebody when you're trying to kind of encourage them and move them along in their path. But he never really becomes the White Wolf as a superhero or something like that. So this would be a new thing.
Right.
We got a new name, but I'd love to see that.
We shall see.
Alrighty. Well, that's it from us. What did you think, listener, about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Be sure to email us or comment on our Facebook or Twitter page and let us know. You can email us any feedback by finding StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at SQPN. find previous episodes of Secrets of Movie and TV Shows, please visit sqpn.com/secrets. You can be sure that we'll be uncovering the secrets of time travel with Loki coming out later this summer. But until then, Andrew Hermiz, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And Mike Denz, thank you as well.
Had a great time, guys. Thanks.
And once again, I'm Thomas Sanjurjo. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV on StarQuest.